Hello friends, welcome to the Forager Worldwide podcast. In this space, we plant seeds for positive change, helping you cultivate a healthier and more sustainable life. In a world saturated with toxins, advertisements, and misinformation, it's easy to overlook the impact our lifestyle has on our bodies, our wellness, and the environment. I'm your host, Flor. I'm here to guide you through essential knowledge and simple steps you can take for personal and environmental healing, allowing you to simplify, detoxify, and radiate. This way, we illuminate the path towards an informed, abundant, and toxic-free future. This episode was recorded on land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Marayam, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of the lands and waters that nurture Southern California. In this first episode, I will introduce the Forager Worldwide movement and dive into our first podcast topic, chemicals in our world. I created the Forager Worldwide movement in response to learning about the abundance of manufactured chemicals in our world and the harmful effects they cause for people, animals, and the environment. The movement's mission is to empower individuals to live mindfully and free of toxic chemicals while promoting holistic well-being, sustainability, and a positive impact on the earth. We strive to cultivate a community that embraces curiosity, authentic lifelong learning, and a legacy of wellness for generations to come. The core principle of this movement is that if something is harmful to the environment, it is harmful to us too. Another guiding principle for this movement is the 7 generations principle, which was inspired by ancient wisdom from the Haudenosaunee people. This principle states that the decisions we make today should result in a sustainable world 7 generations into the future. And this wisdom encourages us to leave a legacy of a healthy environment for future generations to come. Additionally, the Forager Worldwide movement draws inspiration from the timeless concept of foraging, the act of carefully hand-selecting valuable resources from nature. In the modern world, especially in cities, thoughtfully hand-picking resources has become out of reach for many people and consumers. We are saturated with information, glitzy advertising, and seemingly endless choices that make it challenging to discern options that support our health instead of harming it. In the same way that early humans depended on their knowledge of the natural world for survival, today, we strive to equip individuals with the tools to navigate the information environment for their well-being. The Forager Worldwide movement and this podcast are tributes to the wisdom of our ancestors, reminding us that making intentional choices is intrinsic to the human experience. As you learn more about the manufactured dangers lurking in our world, we have one goal in mind: for you to feel empowered with information to simplify your lifestyle, detoxify, and radiate in your cleanest self. Simplify, detoxify, radiate. So with that goal in mind, let's dig into today's topic, chemicals in our world, and explore where chemicals come from and how they ended up all around us. So, to start off this topic, I want to begin by recognizing that chemicals are a part of life here on Earth and part of our environment. Some chemicals are naturally occurring, and others are human-made or manufactured. In fact, there are over 160 million chemicals known to humans, and not all of these are harmful. For example, water and vinegar and the sweet smell of wildflowers are examples of naturally occurring chemicals that don't intrinsically cause any harm. Instead, the chemicals that we focus on for this podcast are human-made or manufactured chemicals. Manufactured chemicals include industrial and agricultural products such as pesticides, petroleum products, and processed metals. Some chemicals are manufactured for specific uses, while others are unwanted byproducts, including wastes or products of combustion such as toxic gases and particles from industrial emissions and the burning of fuel, such as fossil fuels. In the United States, there are over 86,000 chemicals registered for use, and many of these chemicals have not been tested for safety by any government agency, raising some questions from the consumer perspective about what are we buying exactly. So, in a nutshell, there are 3 big groups of chemicals that we should avoid, phase out, and eventually work towards banning. First are toxic chemicals that we find in our food and food packaging, cosmetics, and personal care products, as well as home care. Since these are products that we use on a daily basis, it doesn't make sense for there to be toxic products that can cause us long-term and sometimes multi-generational harm. So we should get these out of our market system. Second are chemicals that bioaccumulate, meaning that they build up inside of animals and plants over time. This can be dangerous because the levels of these chemicals get higher as they move up the food chain. Think about a pond that is contaminated with a chemical pollutant. On the surface of the pond grows some algae, and this algae absorbs the pollutants in the water. Then, let's say a small bug eats some of this algae. This bug now has eaten all of the pollutants inside of the algae. So then, when something like a fish eats the bug, then the fish gets all of the pollutants inside of the bug as well as inside of the algae. And this keeps growing as the food chain links get longer. So for example, when a bird then eats the fish, the bird gets all of the pollution that the fish had, plus what the bugs had, plus what the algae had. That's bioaccumulation. So, to repeat, we don't want chemicals that bioaccumulate in living things being sold in the store. Because if these chemicals accumulate in plants and animals, there's a pretty good chance they can accumulate inside of our bodies too. The last class of chemicals that should be restricted are known as persistent pollutants, also known as forever chemicals. These are chemicals that bioaccumulate and stick around in the environment for a very long time without breaking down. These pollutants can build up inside of ecosystems and harm living things, and since many of these forever chemicals are newly introduced products, we won't have a way of knowing their health effects for quite some time until they're studied. But that doesn't mean that we should allow them to be sold and distributed around the globe knowing that they won't break down. So, you may be wondering, why should we pay attention as consumers and as individuals? Well, just because something is sold on store shelves doesn't mean it's safe. This goes for processed foods, cosmetics, personal care products, home and office goods, and beyond. In an ideal world, as consumers, we'd be able to trust what is sold in stores as things that are not harmful to us. But unfortunately, that is not the case. In economies such as the United States, most chemicals can be produced and placed on the market for regular consumers like you and me to purchase without the need for prior safety testing. This happens because there does not exist adequate federal regulations protecting consumer safety from chemicals in manufactured products. The one exception to this rule are pharmaceutical chemicals, which requires some health and safety testing before being sold to the public. However, the vast majority of chemicals don't fall into this category that require health and safety testing before seeing it in stores. In my opinion, the principle of innocent until proven guilty should only apply to people, not to manufactured chemicals. This raises some red flags when you consider that up to 96% of all products manufactured in the United States were made with products that came from the chemical industry, according to estimates from the Department of Homeland Security. This means there are products being sold in pharmacies, grocery stores, and other markets that use chemicals that are not regulated and likely haven't been tested for health effects and safety. If this sounds concerning to you, it should. In fact, a 2019 survey of American consumers found that 61% of Americans feel concerned about the products they put in, on, and around their bodies. As you probably expected, I consider myself part of those 61% of Americans who are concerned. But beyond having concern, I also take the time to research what I am buying and its ingredients carefully before making a purchase. Ultimately, in an economy with a lack of consumer protections, the consumer bears the responsibility of not allowing toxic substances into their lives through purchased products. The lack of chemical regulation also has broader impacts beyond our individual lives, affecting the environment that we share. For example, the lack of regulation for new chemicals being developed before allowed on the market is how the world ended up with toxic substances like BPA and PFAS that can be found in the environment all across the globe, even in our food system. At this point, you may be wondering, how did we get so many human-made chemicals around us? So this question actually merits its own episode, but in a nutshell, it wasn't always this way. The modern chemical industry can be traced back to the late 1800s as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Many of the early chemicals manufactured were for uses in other industries, such as the production of fertilizer for the agriculture industry, or specialty chemicals for tanning and processing leather. After World War II, the attention of the chemical industry shifted towards American consumers, with the goal of developing new products for post-war America, such as plastics. This marked a tipping point in chemical production and its purpose, which resulted in chemicals being manufactured to get consumers to consume more products, instead of chemicals being produced for industrial uses. The new target customers of the chemical industry materialized as a rapid shift in consumer habits in post-war American households, and this was driven by two major factors. First, the chemical industry released an abundance of new household convenience products that didn't exist before the war, such as styrofoam and sandwich bags and plastic kitchenware. Number two, the American chemical industry began investing a lot of money in marketing campaigns to sell the idea of convenience through chemical industry products to American households after the war. And long story short, it worked. One of my favorite examples of the aggressive marketing tactics that sold the lifestyle shifts to American households is a skit performed at the 1964 New York World's Fair from one of the biggest chemical companies still to date, DuPont. Yeah, so the promise of DuPont was to revolutionize the way people lived by filling their lives with new products made with new chemicals that were designed to get people to buy them. Among the most famous of these were plastics, which came out around this time. And long story short, the marketing worked fabulously. America, followed by other industrializing countries, bought into the age of mass consumption and mass chemical production. These campaigns worked so well that the chemical industry truly became global at that point. In fact, a survey of the chemical inventories of 19 countries and regions revealed that about 350,000 chemical substances have been registered for production and large-scale use over the past 30 to 40 years. Fast forward to today, there are over 70,000 chemicals produced by the U.S. chemical industry alone. Only recently have we started to gain more collective awareness of the chemical abundance in our world and the health risks that they pose for both our personal health and for the planet. And if you're wondering where you can find these consumer-focused chemicals, you don't have to look very far. Think about your favorite bright red snack, or the glitter in your hand soap, or the ocean breeze smell of your bathroom deodorizer, or even the non-stick coating on your kitchen pans. These are just a few of the products that are embellished with consumer-focused chemicals to stimulate your senses, get your attention, and get you to buy them. So you may be wondering, what can we do about it? What can we do about this abundance of chemicals in our world and limit our interaction with them as much as possible? Before diving into a list of things that you can do to protect your health, I want you to take a moment today to think about what health means to you. Can you recall a time you felt vibrant and well? What factors contributed to that feeling? Have you noticed any connections between your physical environment or surroundings and your well-being? What qualities do you think contribute to that feeling? Feel free to pause the podcast and take a moment to reflect on this. The answers to these questions may change over time, symbolizing how deeply personal the understanding of health is to each individual. For me, health is my ability to wake up every day and do the things that I enjoy. When we think about how external factors like toxic chemicals affect our bodies, the key is not to focus on your lifespan or longevity. What I recommend instead is focusing on your health span, which refers to the number of years that you are healthy. If you take care of your health span, your lifespan will take care of itself. So, when we contextualize our personal vision of health to the following recommendations, it can provide a more targeted path to simplify, detoxify, and radiate in our healthiest selves. At the core of embracing simplified living is a mindset that prioritizes wellness through our choices and lifestyle. I invite you to feel power in informed decision-making. Embrace your purchasing power and the idea that you can vote with your wallet. I also invite you to cultivate awareness of your habits and the environment. Keep in mind that the less chemicals you buy, the less chemicals you consume. On this note, one of the most important shifts we can make in our personal lives is being more intentional about what we buy. The next time you're at the store, whether you're shopping for food or soap or personal care products, take a moment to flip over the package that you're going to buy and find the ingredients list. Ask yourself, was the ingredients list easy to find or read? How long is this ingredient list compared to another similar product? And how many ingredients do you recognize just from reading? I recommend getting into the habit of doing this and reading ingredients. Even if you don't recognize them, it can begin to seed a habit of looking into what goes into your products before you buy them, and also cultivate an awareness of how some products have ingredients that are straight up artificial additives, such as colors, flavors, fragrances, or preservatives. Then make the choice on whether or not to purchase based on how much you trust the product. One of my personal rules of thumb is the shorter the ingredient list, the better for me. And the more ingredients I recognize, the more trustworthy I typically consider a product. One way I've used this rule of thumb is in making choices on the food that I buy. A couple of years ago, I made the effort of sticking to the produce and bulk sections when grocery shopping, intentionally avoiding the aisles filled with packaged and preserved food. It's a habit that I maintain to date. For me, this helped me keep the unwanted ingredients in my food to a bare minimum and limit excessively processed food in my diet. This lifestyle change took a lot of habit shifts and work on my end, but it feels worth it for me. Now, I don't expect you to make this shift for yourself, but there are tools you can use to make the simplification process easier while shopping, especially if you're new to this journey. One science-backed tool I use for assessing the safety of personal care products is the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database, which has over 100,000 products included in the database. Using this tool, you can type in a product name to see the ingredients and hazard ratings of both the individual ingredients and the overall product rating. This is something that I've been using for a few years, and it helps me make cleaner choices when it comes to what I put on my skin. Another app that I've heard great things about is the you.How app. This is a mobile app that I've been recommended by several of my friends. Since I don't really buy packaged food, I don't use it for my own shopping, but I've tested it out at the store a couple of times, and it's a pretty simple process where you just scan the barcode of a product that you're considering, and the app provides an easy-to-understand assessment of the ingredients in both food and cosmetic products. Now, in this process, I've been recommending things that you can do to reflect on your routines and lifestyle, and to find opportunities for simplification. This is a repetitive journey, so if you don't like what you're using right now, don't feel discouraged because there are always opportunities to change later. In this process, I encourage you to embrace curiosity. Scrutinize and question your products, especially the ingredients list, and keep an openness to learn. Keep an open mindset and an open heart. And in this process, remember to engage in self-forgiveness and not to judge yourself for past choices that you made due to lack of information. Instead, take this opportunity to grow and improve moving forwards. Instead of going to your kitchen or bathroom cabinet and sorting through products that you have and perhaps feeling scared and tempted to throw them away, that's not the goal of me telling you this. Instead, I invite you to reflect mindfully on what you have in your life currently and consider how, when that product runs out, you can make a more health-aligned choice moving forwards. Because the goal is not to produce more waste either. Instead, it's to find opportunities for more informed decision-making in our lives moving forwards. Keeping in mind that this journey is one of continuous and incremental growth. No need to make a major lifestyle overhaul overnight. Instead, remember this is a process of incremental awareness and lifestyle shifts. To root the advice I just shared into daily practice, I invite you to reflect on or repeat the following affirmation. My life is a journey of continuous improvement. I embrace the process of growth through awareness and simplification of my lifestyle with grace and determination. My life is a journey of continuous improvement. I embrace the process of growth through awareness and simplification of my lifestyle with grace and determination. In future episodes, we'll dive deeper into toxic chemicals that we bring into our homes and share more tips on how to substitute and avoid them. Stay tuned! I hope this episode has expanded your awareness about the world we live in and provided you with new knowledge and actions you can take in your personal life and beyond to embrace a toxic-free future. To promote transparency in this type of public-facing research, attached to this podcast are resources that you can use to help guide you on your journey of detoxification. I understand this path is not always easy, but remember that you are part of the change that will yield a brighter future. By cultivating awareness and taking simple, incremental steps, we can focus on healthy and sustainable growth for ourselves and for future generations. Join the movement and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode release. For the fully annotated podcast transcripts, visit foragerworldwide.com and follow us on Instagram at Forager Worldwide for more radiant living tips. This episode was written by Flor de Santo and co-produced with Max van der Horst. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my friend Mo for providing accessibility consulting services. Thank you so much for listening.